So before we get started, we're going to just kind of talk a little bit about who we are, and then we'll introduce the speaker. So welcome to our webinar titled How to Generate Sales. I'm the incubator program coordinator at the Innovation Quarters, and we offer a few things here, along with helping new startups with one-on-one mentoring, programming and training, networking and events, and we also offer a collaborative co-working space. Those all come together with our incubator program that we run every 6 months. It's a really great program that I encourage you to apply for. Our next cohort is going to be starting in November, so I do really encourage you to apply before October 13th. It's completely free. And then our co-working space, if you're looking for office space, if you're perhaps tired of working from home and you're looking for something a bit more professional, or you perhaps lost your office space during COVID, currently working with your team for everybody from home, but looking for a place to meet up with your team once a week or more often, you can check out our website at innovationquarters.ca and take a look at the different options we have available for co-working space. And our co-host for the event today is the Regional Business Center. So they're a one-stop shop for information and guidance on starting, expanding, and operating a business. They serve the Greater Sudbury, Espanola, Manitoulin Island, and the surrounding areas. And they offer confidential one-on-one consultations, business plan support, market research, business registration, and more. So I do encourage you to take a look at their website as well, theregionalbusiness.ca, and they will be able to help support you with any kind of questions you have with your business. So you can they also take in walk-ins. They're at the Tom Davies Square as well, but feel free to connect with them on their website or by email. Okay, so just upcoming events real quick. We have a 5-part Francophone series starting just in a few days. It's the first topic being Explorer l'entrepreneuriat. And so this is really great opportunity for Francophone business owners to kind of get the basics of how to start a business. And it's in 5 sessions and it's co-hosted by Impact ON. We also have an in-person event happening that's hosted by the Greater Sudbury Chamber of Commerce. That's going to be happening September 11th at the Innovation Quarters at 43 Elm Street. It's going to be really great networking. There'll be great food, different business booths. If you're looking to get a booth at the event, you can go to their website or ours. We do link to it, so take a look. And then finally, we do have another event happening September 19th. That's going to be presented by Lisa Aho, who's an expert grant application writer. She is at grant writing, so she's going to share some tips with us on how to write a successful grant application. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to present our speaker today, Shawn Casemore. So Shawn is a sales expert, professional speaker, and author. His speaking has attracted recognizable brands such as NGK, Bosch, Tim Hortons, PepsiCo, MNP, Bank of Montreal, and over 200 leading organizations. Shawn's publishing includes hundreds of articles in print and online for publications such as Forbes, Fast Company, Chief Executive, and Industry Week. He's also written 5 commercially published books, including his most recent, The Unstoppable Sales Machine, and The Unstoppable Sales Team. And he has a book that's going to be coming out. Perhaps he'll talk about that today, The Sales Multiplier Formula. So welcome, Shawn. Happy to have you.
Thank you very much, Melissa, and welcome to everybody who's joining us today. It's great to be here. We've got a lot to talk about. And yeah, if everybody's good, we probably should jump into it so we have enough time. So let me just pull up the obligatory slide deck and we'll get started. Let me just get this over here. Okay. So Melissa, can you confirm you can see my slides okay?
Looks good.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So for those of you that are joining us here today, if there's a lot of questions that we get backlogged in, I've asked Melissa to stop me and we'll address them at the time. Otherwise, the plan is to address your questions at the end. Okay. Also, I'm a big fan of Zoom, not an expert in Teams as much. I mean, it's working as you can tell, but the point I'm making here is I can't see you. So if you were to pop on the screen and start waving, I have no idea that's happening. I'm looking at my slides. So again, Melissa will keep me on track there. And this is being recorded, and I think Melissa will be sharing this with you as well at the end of the session if you are interested. So let me start with this so that hopefully I can show you that I understand where you're at. Regardless of what you are selling, whatever your company is, your business is, in 2010, I quit my full-time job while my wife was on maternity leave with our first child and started what is this. It started in speaking and training, which I still do today, and really focused on sales because I'd had a lot of different careers in sales and loved it. Now, all that and $2.25 will get me on the bus. But I guess what I'm suggesting is that if you're somebody who is new to launching a business, you're thinking of starting a business, you have started a business, you're in the early stages of your business. I have been where you are. And my business may be different than yours by design. That's okay. But one thing you need to know how to do is to sell. And I often find there are people with a great business idea that can't sell or don't want to sell, or they want to pass along the selling to somebody else. And I would highly encourage you not to do that because you're the one that's most passionate about whatever it is you're offering into the marketplace. And I've seen all sorts of people from introverts to people who are highly unorganized become very effective at sales. So if you're having any doubts, you can do it. And I believe in you. And I know that I've seen so many successful businesses, but it really starts with some of the basics. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is not the basics. Now, you may have come here saying, Jeepers, I really want the basics. Yeah, what I would suggest you can do is there's all sorts of free programs online with the basics of selling. My goal today is to share with you what you need to do in today's environment, in today's market, in order to sell. I'm sharing with you things that will complement, and we'll talk about this, but will complement the basics. For example, I'm going to reach out to somebody, right? I'm going to call them. Okay, how do you do that in a way that they actually respond? See, that's what nobody's talking about. That's what the basic programs don't cover. So I'm going to give you today some basic tools, but some more advanced tools because my goal is to equip you with knowledge that you may not find elsewhere that will help you be effective in selling in today's economy. Okay, so that's the goal. Again, if there are some questions you have that we can always cover those later. And as Melissa mentioned, I've got several books. A lot of what I'll talk about today is in one of my main books, which is here, The Unstoppable Sales Machine. You can get them on Amazon. They've even now come out actually with Audible. So if you want to listen to the book, you can do that as well. And my latest book, I'd talk more about it, but there is no cover created yet. But I think it'll be out here in the next couple of months. So I'll talk more about that at the end. Okay, so let's jump into it. Start with the obvious. Everybody knows what that car is. In fact, I don't think they carry that model anymore. But what I find today, especially with those who are younger than me, I'm in my 50s now, so not as young as I once was. But what I find is there's a premise or a belief, depending on age, as to how sales occur. And let me give you an example of that. If I was to talk to somebody who's in their, let's say, early 20s, there's a good chance your business is somehow connected to or tied to technology. It may not be that you're selling technology, but you're probably using technology as part of your business. And as a result, you're probably looking at technology as a way to help you sell. That's smart. But if I was to talk to somebody who's 60 and I'd say, you know what, you need to start using Apollo as software to assist with cold outreach and help you warm up those leads and consistently fill the top of your pipeline. First off, they probably wouldn't know what I'm talking about. And secondly, once they did know that Apollo is a cold email outreach tool, effectively with a list built right into it, they'd probably decline. They'd probably say, well, no, I'm old school. I'd rather go meet with people. Now, I say this to you because, well, for two reasons. Well, three, but we'll focus on two. First off, you can't let your own biases relative to how you think sales work guide you. Meaning, if you believe that all sales can be automated, I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. But on the flip side, if you believe that all sales have to happen in person, on the golf course or over dinner or what have you, that's also not true. The second point is, so we have to set aside our own beliefs of what sales might be, because that's our biases. That's what we believe to be the case, and we may or may not know that that's true. The person that really decides how you sell is the person you're selling to. So if you're selling to somebody who's 20, you probably want to give them some technology to use as part of the sales process. But if that person is 60, you probably want to go meet with them. Now, I share this with you. The third point I want to share with you, though, is that a lot more sales is moving to online. Again, kind of an obvious point, but to some, maybe not to all. So regardless of what you sell, you definitely have to have an online presence. You definitely have to have ways by which prospective customers or clients for you, those that you want to sell to, can interact with you and can experience your product or service. The debate I often hear at this point is, well, Shawn, do I put my products on or my services online? If I do I put prices on? Because if I do that, my competitors will see that. Again, here's my bias. I am a fan of putting your services clearly online, your products or services. I'm not a fan of putting your price, but it depends on what you sell. I mean, if you sell a widget and everybody else is selling widgets, it's like Amazon, then put your price on. So that would be more of a consumer packaged goods idea, or maybe e-com, okay? But nonetheless, you need to have an online presence. That's really what I want to suggest here. Now, on the flip side of that, and Gartner, if you haven't heard of Gartner before, they do a lot of studies. They publish these studies, very reputable organization. And this just came out late last year. What they said when they took a look at buyers, so people who are buying, prospective customers in the B2B market. So B2B is where a business is selling to a business versus selling to a consumer. So a commercial insurance company selling insurance to a company is B2B. A massage therapist selling massages to an individual is B2C, if you weren't aware. But what they found in this study, looking at B2B transactions specifically, is that 3/4 of buyers prefer a rep-free sales experience, meaning they don't want to talk to somebody in sales. They'd rather do it themselves. So the obvious conclusion there is, oh goodness, I have to move everything online. I have to get rid of my salespeople. I don't need salespeople. It can all be automated. But in the same study, they also were told that self-service, which is what we're accustomed to when we go on Amazon, as an example, digital purchases are far more likely to result in purchase regret. So therein lies the confusion, if you will, or the challenge for all of us when it comes to selling in today's market. A lot of people don't think they need to talk to sales. They're accustomed to, you and I are accustomed to just looking up whatever we want and buying it. The other day I went in to buy a fuse. I've got an older car. I blew a fuse. Those are things that keep the electrical working. So I thought I'll go to the local Canadian Tire and pick one up. It's convenient, it's close. So I went to Canadian Tire. Sure enough, they didn't have the size. In the parking lot in my car, I jump on my phone and go to Amazon. There's a size, it's in the mail, it'll be there tomorrow. So it's online is influencing us as consumers. And then we take those behaviors and we walk into the companies we're working in, and we're kind of starting to mold those companies to be the same. But the key in all of this that I want you to take away from this is that just moving everything online isn't the solution. It is not the solution. What we've got to do is have salespeople, whether that's one person, whether that's you, okay? We've got to think in a way that incorporates online, digital, into how we're selling. Right? So we've got to become adept at using different platforms for different reasons in order to create that self-service environment, and yet we're still part of it. And I'll give you more examples as we go, but I want to start here. And the reason I start here is because, again, I find people come to these presentations with their own beliefs as to what sales is. Feet on the street selling is dead. Yes and no. It depends on what you sell. It depends on who you sell to. It depends on where in the world you are. But also to say everything is moved online is also false. Okay. Even if you buy a car, a friend of mine is the vice president of a local Toyota dealer. And when they make sales online, which a lot of customers just go and they go to the Toyota website and pick out the car and the color and the options and features, but they still want to come into the dealer with that printed off in hand and talk to somebody to answer some of their questions. Right. So there still is. And what I want to suggest to you is that's what I was saying before. You have to realize that when people are buying, chances are they're checking you out personally, as well as your company, if there's a company website, before they interact with you. More on that in a bit. Okay. So that same study was, or the quote I shared with you a minute ago was the outcome of a study that's been carried on for several years. This same source, Gartner, came out a couple of years earlier. And as I said, the study's been going on for several years. But I think this is another interesting thing to look at, because from a standpoint of trying to sell in today's economy, Gartner went out and said, okay, when people are buying products or services, when companies, B2B companies are buying products and services from other companies, how are they spending their time then? They don't want self-serve, right? But they don't really want a sales rep hanging out all the time? What are they doing currently? What is their current behavior? What it found, if we look at 12 o'clock and go clockwise, 27% of time that somebody is spending before they make a buy decision is being spent researching online. Now you see across from that at kind of the 4 p.m. that 18% is being spent offline. So going to conferences and events, picking up brochures, whatever. 16% at 3 o'clock there on the I guess the right. That is being spent on a variety of other activities. Bottom left, 22% is meeting with the buying group. In a B2B environment where it is a business buying from other businesses, what's happening is more and more people are getting involved in the buy decision. So when I was in my 20s and 30s, if you were to sell to a company then, they always said you got to get to the decision maker, right? Which is smaller company be the president, bigger company, it might be a VP. That's still the case to some degree, but more often now, and if you have worked in a company, what you'll know is a lot of CEOs and executives are trying to be more collaborative with their team. So rather than take on all the decisions themselves, they refer to others. They bring people together. Say, hey, we're thinking of buying this thing. What do you think? What do you think? Let's discuss it. So it's interesting, 22% of the time is being spent internally discussing this potential buy. And then up in the far right, the red, 17% is being spent meeting with suppliers, which is you or me, 17%. And that percent is divided by the number of suppliers or vendors or service providers that they're actually meeting with. So that sheds some light on what's going on. And from my perspective anyways, when it comes to you selling whatever it is you're selling, this is important information for you to know. And if we summarize this, it really comes back to what I said a few minutes ago, which is people who are buying your products or services are spending a lot of time online, the majority of their time out of all of these areas online, but they're still looking at offline sources. They're still going to events, right? And looking for people there or looking at booths. They're still actually asking within their network, hey, do you know somebody that can help me over here? They're potentially asking current suppliers, hey, I need somebody that can help me in this. Do you know of anybody? So those typically were the predominant ways by which they would find a source in the past, 15 years ago, for example. Now they're becoming less and less, but they're still there, right? And a lot of time is being spent meeting internally. And here's the key about that 22%. Each person that is meeting internally is going and doing their own research. So what does this mean to you? Right? How do we interpret this? Well, there's some things we're going to walk through today as far as how you prepare yourself in this kind of environment. But what I want to suggest to you at a basic level is that, as I mentioned before, you need to have a company website. And I'm not a marketing guru. I know enough to be dangerous, but you need a website. It needs to explain what you do, how you help, and having some sort of chat module or something, depending on what you sell, may or may not make sense. But what you also need to do is ensure that your own personal profile is up to date. So if you can see how this might happen. Let's say I call you, I leave a message. Hi, Shawn calling. I want to connect with you because of A, B, and C. I'll send you a quick email, right? And then I send an email. It's likely if you've never heard of me before, or if you have, but you really don't know much about me, first thing you're going to do is go to Google or AI. You're going to ask about Shawn Casemore, and up's going to come stuff, right? Hopefully good stuff. It will be good stuff, actually. So what you need to do is Google yourself or AI, ask AI to tell you what it finds on you, because what comes up will be exactly what your potential customers find when they look you up. And one of the things that'll typically show up on the first page is LinkedIn. And I'm a big proponent right now of LinkedIn. I think people are using it more and more. There's a lot of business happening on LinkedIn, and we can talk more about that later. But essentially, you want to be taking a look at what people will find when they look you up, and then you want to manipulate that to the extent you can. So, for example, I had an article I published 10 years ago with a very irrelevant publication. It's not a market I'm in, and I felt that they seem to have really good traction on SEO, because every time I put my name in, boom, that article showed up on page one. I didn't want it showing up on page one. So I reached out to the company, say, hey, look, here's who I am. Can you take that article down? And they did. But I also spend a lot of time on my LinkedIn profile. I publish a lot of content in a variety of forms for all the reasons I mentioned before. But mainly, the main reason is people look me up. It's got to be clear when they land on my profile that I am who I say I am. It's got to be clear in how I can help them. I'd encourage you to do the same at a simple level. If you do nothing else today, Google yourself or ask AI to tell you what it finds on you. And then make sure those sources, those landing pages, LinkedIn, social profiles, whatever they are align with the messaging you're trying to create. Because even if you're a business owner, right, people are going to look you up, and you want to make sure if you're don't have a picture, if your experience isn't there, if your company isn't listed as top foremost, something that you'll want to take a look at. Okay, so there's a simple strategy tip you can take away from today. But let's continue on the idea of, okay, from this study, what can we conclude? We can conclude that people are spending a lot more time without sales than they are with sales. And when it's with sales, a lot of times, excuse me, they've spent time doing their research already. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means they're coming in, if they agree to meet with us, or if they take our call, or if they respond to our email, they've done their research and they likely believe that whatever they found is correct, right? And we all know that whatever you find online is accurate. So what can happen is you reach out to somebody about, let's say, janitorial supplies. Okay, let's say you're selling janitorial supplies. You reach out to a company. They've been around for a while, so clearly they're using somebody else at present or buying the stuff themselves. You want the opportunity to sell to them. So you leave a message or a couple messages, maybe have an email. Somebody looks you up. They better find stuff that suggests who you are and that you do sell janitorial products, obviously. But also, if you do get a meeting with them or a chance to speak with them, they're already going to have their own pre-drawn conclusions about what their needs are. So if you've got a new offering, hey, our toilet paper is that's probably a bad example. Hey, our paper towel, it's the strongest out there. It's even better than Charmin. You can't squeeze it, but it's so absorbent, lasts twice as long, et cetera, et cetera. If they can't see that online, there's a chance they're not going to believe you, because they've already got preconceived notions from their research as to what they need and what they don't. So the challenge being a sales professional today is we've got to be very good in just a few areas to be able to shift this research and these pre-drawn conclusions in order to have a chance to sell. That's what I want to walk you through. Okay, so let's excuse me, let's get started on that. First off, don't think of your buyers just because they're spending all their time in these different ways. They're not bad people, obviously. This is actually how they feel. The same study I showed you earlier also found that people that purchase regret idea, what tends to happen is people do their research online. And think about you buying a car or looking for maybe an Airbnb or whatever. You go online, you do some research, you finally reach a conclusion. Sometimes that's quick, sometimes it takes longer. But what happens after you make a decision? Oftentimes what happens is, new information arises. I didn't see this house before. I didn't see this Airbnb. Oh, I didn't see the fine print on that car that they're not currently available. I got to order it and it's 6 months out. So this is how buyers are feeling. There's so much information, so much research. They've got so many people coming at them with different ideas. They're a little bit overwhelmed. That's a key to how we can sell, because we want to set ourselves apart from just the salesperson and become a trusted advisor. Okay, I'm going to say that again because it's an important one. Regardless of what you sell capital equipment, you sell janitorial services, you sell software, lawn mowing services, it doesn't matter. Your prospects, the people you're selling to, they've done research, they're still doing research, they're getting information sent to them every day, brochures, pamphlets, business cards, links, emails from all your competitors, and they've got a headache. And so what you need to consider is, and just a couple key things here that we'll talk through. Number one, if that's where they're at, how can I set myself apart? How can I be different? Because I don't want to fall into that maze of just another salesperson. And how can I become that trusted advisor that they actually want to refer to me for information, ideas, feedback, rather than somebody that's just pitching and selling stuff all the time? Okay, so that's kind of a mindset. So I give you a quick tip: Google yourself. That's number one. Number two, I want you to realize where the people you're trying to sell to are at. So if they're not responding to you, if they're not getting back to you, however you've reached out to them, it's not necessarily that you're the problem. The issue is that they may be overwhelmed with your area of expertise or your products or services, or with something entirely different. But we want to approach differently because we want to be seen as that trusted advisor. Now, just some quick stats for you. If you use different methods to reach out to people, which I presume you do, and you should. A couple stats. Number one, it takes on average, and I'll change the average word to at least, but let's say on average, 12 touch points to connect with somebody that even if you do know them a little bit, maybe somebody referred you. In other words, You don't send 1 or 2 emails or make a call and send an email or reach out on LinkedIn and then stop because you don't hear back. It takes a lot of different touch points, and touch points are you reaching out to get somebody's attention. And I'll give you a strategy on how you can do that in a minute. Number 2, if you send email as part of your outreach, preferably those are personalized, but where you maybe have a newsletter or something you send out to a broader group of people, your average open rates are less than 22%. And click through. So let's say you put in that email something you want to sell. So click here for a free consultation. I'm not even selling that. Or click here to buy. You've got about a 1%, maybe 2%. If you're 3%, like where people are actually clicking and buying, that's amazing. So just using email when everybody has so many emails today, not the best strategy, but using email as part of your overall strategy works very well. And again, I'll give you some examples of that. If you're leaving voicemails for people, if you're calling and that's part of your outreach strategy, 81% of calls where the person doesn't recognize the number are pushed to voicemail. So the majority, so if you're trying to call and get people on the phone, good luck. So there's some things we can take away from these stats, okay? We go into these next few slides here with this as kind of a starting point. Number 1, if you're calling, okay, chances are it's going to go to voicemail. So that's kind of observation number 1. Observation number 2, email is of low priority. So it doesn't mean I shouldn't use email, but open rates are low, click-through rates are low. So if I send an email, it's got to be tied to something that really gets their attention. And what's not incorporated on this slide is the fact that spam filters just keep going up. So if you're going to send a crazy email with a funny picture on it or a catchy title, there's a chance it'll get scooped up by spam and nobody ever see it. Last but not least, you've got to have, I'm working backwards here, obviously, you've got to have a series of steps you follow for every single prospect you want to connect with, okay? It doesn't mean you got to follow the same process every time, but what I want you to think about is that the people you're trying to sell to, where do they typically hang out and how can you connect with them there? So they're probably got a desk and a computer, so they've got email. They probably got a phone, that's an option, and they're probably on LinkedIn, potentially. So there's an option. Those are 3 that are quite common if you're selling B2B, 3 areas you should be, and 3 areas you want to incorporate as part of your outreach, okay? So what I want you to then consider is, as you're reaching out to people, your number 1 goal, your main goal is to get attention, okay? The reason you need to get attention is because, go back to this slide right here. That's what the people, I'm a visual person, so I see that and I remind myself, okay, I've reached out to this guy a few times, haven't heard back, but then I remember this picture and I'm like, okay, but that's what he's feeling like, which prompts me to think, so likely the people that I'm reaching out to, that you're reaching out to, are hearing from your competitors, right? So how do I set myself apart so that I can capture their attention? Because they got to have their attention before they'll reply to my email, before they'll take my call, before they'll take the meeting. So step number 1, you've got to be thinking about grabbing people's attention. And you do not do that by doing what everybody else does. I'm going to say that again because it's important. You will not grab people's attention if you're doing what your competitors are doing. So if they've got email campaigns they send out to thousands of people, I would not be doing that because it's already being done. If they're cold calling people to try and book meetings, I wouldn't use that as a primary way for you to pursue. Or if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't use that as a primary way to pursue, because I'm going to get lumped into the same bucket my competitors are, which is salesperson trying to sell them something. My goal is to be a trusted advisor. So the real challenge, again, we'll talk more about this as we go, is figuring out, how do I get the attention of the people I'm trying to sell to? And that's not a marketing question. I mean, of course, you should be marketing. You should have good marketing materials. You should have messages that are very clear to the people you're trying to sell to. It should be very clear as to who you are and what you're selling, what you're offering to them, and how you help and how you've helped others. But as a person in sales, you've got to tackle this yourself. All the marketing materials in the world won't close a sale, right? Marketing materials typically just get people to go, hey, that's interesting. Let me follow up. How many times have you clicked on an ad on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, and you get into it and realize, yeah, I'm not interested, and you close it? That happens all the time. So marketing materials can kind of put the fish hook out there, but it's sales that take it from the, okay, you're interested, let me help you through the process. Let me be your trusted advisor, and we'll work through this journey together. Now, how then do you create attention? How do you capture attention? How do you reach out in ways that are different? Well, it's exactly that. Ask yourself, how are my competitors reaching out today? And what can I do with this different? And if you're not sure, then talk to an existing or even a prospective customer. If you have no customers yet, reach out and ask them the question. Hey, I'm new to this. We've got this new product line. I wonder if I could ask you a quick question. Now, that can't be your initial message because they'll think you're going to sell. Here's what you do. You reach out to a prospective customer and you say, and this has got to be somebody you've at least met before. It can't be cold, but somebody maybe you met at an event or they're a friend of the family or whatever the case is. You reach out, say, I was wondering, I've appreciated our conversations in the past. Wondering if you had a few minutes. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. Should only take 10 minutes. I really appreciate your opinion on this. That kind of message will get most people to respond, say, sure, right? Keep it easy. Doesn't have to be a big virtual conversation. You can do it over the phone. And you tell them on the phone, look, as you know or may not know, we've launched a new product. We've launched a new service. We're new in town, whatever the case is. And I know I've got competitors, company A and company B for sure, but I'm trying to make sure that I don't fall into the bucket of being just like them. So my question to you is, how could I reach out to you or to other potential companies in ways that will be different and helpful to you? And then zip it and see what they say. Now you can change that question, right? Depending on the response you get, if it's not what you're looking for in the next call, because you do this with several people, you ask a slightly modified question. You say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm adding value and I'm being a trusted advisor. What are ways that I could connect with somebody such as yourself and be that trusted advisor and not come off as all salesy? Because that's the last thing I want to do, right? So you can ask different questions, but my point is that if you connect with people genuinely and ask them for feedback, they will give it to you. And if these are people you're going to try to sell to, or they mimic the people you're trying to sell to, all the better. If you have existing customers, ask this of your existing customers or clients. If you don't, use the strategy I share. They'll tell you, well, jeepers, I get emails every week from that company. I can't stand it. Okay, mental note, don't send weekly emails, right? Here are some things you can try. If you're looking for ideas still, and I'll just put these up quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but there's tools like BombBomb. It's a software platform. You can go online and look into the little light right here and record a video and send that through email using BombBomb, and it'll go right to people's desks. They'll get your video. You can have lunch and learns. You can run webinars. You can send direct mail. We've talked a little bit about LinkedIn, or you can just do things that are creative. I actually have a series of postcards that I got made up and nice boxes that I put a couple books in when I'm reaching out to somebody. So the goal is to set yourself apart from the competitor. Because as soon as you're in that same bucket as them, as soon as you reach out in ways that are them, if the prospect decides to connect with you, what's going to happen is they're seeing you as the same as everybody else. So when it comes to you proposing, whether you give them a proposal, you give them a quote for something, how are they going to decide who they work with? Price. Because to your prospect, everything else is the same. When we reach out in ways that are different, when we create an experience for our prospects that are different from our competitors, we set ourselves apart. When we set ourselves apart, it's much more difficult for people to measure us based on price. Okay. The second thing I want to, and this is a quick story I'll share with you. I had somebody reach out to me. I clicked on an ad, go figure, right? But local company to me. So I live about 4 hours from you. I'm in a place called Owen Sound, which I used to call the near north until I was in Sudbury, and then that's obviously the near north. But I'm not in Toronto. I'm in a rural setting. And so I was looking for an automatic blind, or like a cover, if you will. So I found an ad online. Company in Toronto sells this product. So I reached out, left my contact information on the weekend. Didn't hear back from anybody until Monday at 9:17. I get a call and I don't recognize it. So it goes to voicemail. There it is. And then I get a follow-up email. And it's like, hey, Shawn, saw your ad, saw you respond to the ad, want to give you information. Let's have a call. So I replied back. And the reason I reached out in the first place is there was no pricing on their website. So I replied back that night when I had a chance. These are all signs of what your potential customers would do. And I said, hey, thanks for reaching out. I'm just looking for an idea of price. This is the size. Can you give me an idea of a budget range? Next day, like 9:17, another call, follow-up email, same thing, ignoring my request and just wanting to have a call, have a meeting with me. So, okay, I've already asked my question. I'll leave it alone. Wednesday, I get an email. Thursday, I get nothing. Friday, I get an email that says this is the last time we're going to reach out. Now, I think what was going on is somebody was being paid to make calls, so they're really focused on one thing. But my point to you is this: the Center for Sales Strategy did a study as far as how do we reach out to people we don't know in ways that will get their attention. And what they found is that you want to space things out differently than we typically do. So typically, if somebody gave you a name, say, call this person, you'd be all over it. You'd be calling them today, calling them tomorrow, but after 3, 4, 5 times, you might go, I didn't get a hold of them, so they must not be interested. Center for Sales Strategy said you approach it differently. So I would reach out to you in day one, then I'd wait about a week. I'd reach out to you again. Then I'd wait about 6 days, then 5, 4, all the way down to the bottom. And at the last touch point here, and you'll see there's 8, right? If you look at all these blocks are touch points. You've got a 90% chance of being called back. Okay. And notice where salespeople typically give up. 90% of, or 89%, excuse me, have typically given up after 4. If you hang out till 8, there's a good chance you're going to be the one that gets the call. So what I want to share with you is if you're reaching out to people you don't know, try this approach. Space it out more in the beginning and then shorten as time goes on. It's been proven to be a better way to reach people. Okay. I call that accelerating your outreach. Now, years ago, I owned a Volkswagen. And something I've never forgotten is when I had that car, something that was in the trunk was a tin. When I opened up the tin, there was a embroidered chamois with the Volkswagen logo on it. Now, what that was is really Volkswagen trying to add value. I've owned a lot of cars. I've never had that in any other vehicle. And what Volkswagen is trying to do through that simple little thing is add value, differentiate themselves, that set them apart from the competition. Okay. You've got to think in the same manner, which is how do I add value in every step of my outreach? That's what a trusted advisor does. So you're not reaching out, right? Say, hey, do you want to meet? Do you want to meet? Do you want to meet? Do you want a call? Do you want a meeting? That's taking the time of your prospect. You want to give. So what can I offer people that's of help based on what I sell? It might be an assessment. It might be a checklist. It might be a free consultation. It might be a free sample. It might be a tour. It might be a free webinar. It can be all sorts of things. But what I want you to consider is that adding value is the way to set yourself apart from your competition and to become that trusted advisor. And you can add value in multiple different ways, as you see here. It can be information. It can be just basic value that people expect to have. It can be something that's unique, like that chamois I showed you. It can be something that really addresses the individual themselves, or it can be something of monetary value. So there's a lot of different ways. You need to have what I call a vault of assets, of value assets, if you will, a vault of value assets that you can draw from. So as you're reaching out, you're always adding value. When you do that, you set yourself apart. You differentiate yourself from the competition who's just looking for a call. I want to follow up. I want to have another call, right? You don't want to be taking, you want to be giving. The other thing I want to share with you is that language, the language you use, the words you use matter. They matter so much, and most people don't consider them. You think about old school sales training, if you've ever been around any of it, will say, well, you need to ask your buyers, what keeps you up at night? The reality is in today's environment, the people are smarter than that. They've done their research. You, therefore, in order to shock them out of this preconceived notion as to what's right, what's wrong, and how you can help, because again, they think they know because they've done their research, you need to be a little bit more provocative with your language. So instead of asking them that question, you might tell them, here's some things you need to consider that maybe you haven't. That kind of language, as long as what you're suggesting are things they haven't considered, is going to get them to sit up and think, hold on a second, I hadn't considered that before. All my research and I hadn't come across that. That's how you set yourself apart as a trusted advisor. So use language that's provocative. There's a great book called Words to Sell that if you don't have it and you're somebody that kind of struggles with coming up with the right words to say, this is a great resource. I own it. It gives you words, it gives you phrases, all that are labeled by different chapters and sections to help you be a little more effective on how you reach out to people. Okay. So and we started with this, but I think it's important just to share it. As I mentioned before, because I have a little exercise for you to kind of go back to how we started this. Your customers today are looking at you and you just don't know it. And I can tell you from somebody, I sell, right? I have to sell my services. Sometimes it can be difficult because you're doing a lot of work, a lot of outreach, but you're not getting a lot back. It doesn't mean people aren't checking you out. It doesn't mean people are. Remember, 27% of the times researching, they may be checking you out. It just might not be the right time to reach out. Again, different study than the one I showed earlier, but studies have shown repeatedly that ultimately I'm going to get the numbers right here. About 20% of people will reach out to you when they first have a question. So kind of before they get too far into research. 60% will do some research and then reach out to you. And the other 20% tend to reach out to you after they've done the research. The ones that are that last 20%, those are the people that if you've been in sales for any period of time, where somebody will call you and say, yeah, I checked this thing out, I want to buy it. And you go, wow, look at me go. I'm selling like crazy. No, you had a good presence, a good offering. It was clear. They did their research and they decided on you. So keep in mind that if people aren't getting back to you, it doesn't mean you stop. It doesn't mean they're not interested. And if you follow that accelerated approach I shared with you, and you're always adding value, then you're not pestering people. And when you're not pestering them, they're more apt to want to interact with you, to want to have a conversation. I use so many different methods to prospect, it would probably make your head spin. I don't use one or two. And, I'm always looking. This morning, I was looking up some people to connect with because I speak at a lot of events, sales team events, right? People sometimes bring in somebody to their company. So I'm looking up, trying to connect with VPs of sales, for example. So if I can't find their contact information, guaranteed they're on LinkedIn, I send them a personalized request, right? But I jump from that over to calling somebody because I know that's the most effective way to likely reach them. And then I'm jumping over from that to send an email to somebody and jumping from that, right, to go meet somebody for lunch. I mean, you've got to have a variety of activities going on. And again, depending on what you sell, some may make more sense than others. But what I want you to think about is the demographic of the people you're selling to, the age of the people you're selling to. And again, if you're really not sure, if you're still kind of stuck on, well, jeepers, do I send email or do I call? Ask them, hey, what's the best way to reach you? Or a different question would be, how do competitors, as I said before, how do competitors reach out today? I want to make sure I'm not in that same bucket, right, as your competitors are. Okay, so here is a quick little exercise for you as we get ready to wrap up here. When you take a look at your own online presence, so you Google yourself, and you can do this with your company and you, but I really encourage you because, as I said, even if your company, like I am my company, right? My name is my company, but you may have a company where your name's not part of it. But if you're part of the company and you're reaching out to people, I guarantee you they're looking you up. Who is this? Who is this Kelly Smith that just reached out to me and left me a message? Let me take a look, right? So when you look at yourself online and you find whatever they find, does it speak to you from the standpoint of being credible and trustworthy? Okay. The second thing is, does it answer the question, how do you help me solve my problem? So this is very specific to if you have a LinkedIn profile, or let's say you're using Facebook or Instagram or other social platforms. If they go to your profile, does it clearly state how you help them solve their problem? A friend of mine is a coach to marketing directors. And he used to have his LinkedIn profile where you can put, 3 lines of stuff there right under your name. And he's changed it to, it says, a coach to marketing directors. I mean, it couldn't be more clear. Well, guess what? More people are connecting with him, reaching out to him through LinkedIn because it's crystal clear. I'm still a little scattered because I'm in a lot of different areas. So I'm a professional speaker. I'm a coach to sales leaders. And I do some consulting, right? So I've still got my 3 and I'm challenging myself to how do I narrow that down so it's crystal clear? So whatever your profile is online, whatever people will land on, even if it's the About tab on your website, is it crystal clear that you can help them solve their problem? And something I didn't put in here, but you should be aware of, is that one of the ways you can do this is to have testimonials from existing customers that speak on your behalf. So you can do this through LinkedIn and have people do a recommendation for you. You can look that up. It's pretty easy to do. And you could ask people to do it and add those to your profile below. You can just ask people as you get a client or a customer, right? Even if you're doing a test with somebody and say, can you test this? I won't charge you. Just want your feedback. If they're happy with it, that's your trigger to say, you know what, can I ask you a question? Could you give me a brief testimonial? Then you use that as part of your outreach. You can put it on your email signature, right? A little testimonial from somebody. You can add it to your LinkedIn profile. You can put it on any profile you have anywhere. So if you look yourself up, is what you find demonstrate to other people that you're credible and trustworthy, that you can help them solve their problem, and that ultimately it speaks to the fact that they will be a priority for you. Because these are the 3 questions any person you're trying to connect with is asking themselves before they connect with you. So if you're calling me and emailing me and send me a LinkedIn message and I'm seeing this stuff, before I connect with you, even if I don't have a current need, by the way, I'm saying, oh, does this person seem like who they are? If I go and find you somewhere, right? Is it who I think you are? Secondly, does it seem like they can help me solve a problem, even if it's not a current problem? Is it a problem I've had in the past or it could be having in the future? And ultimately, do I get the sense that I'm going to be a priority for you? Okay. Those are the 3 questions they're asking themselves. So you need to take the time to make sure that whatever they find, wherever it is, brochures, pamphlets, or online, answers those questions for them. Okay. Now, what you can do today is just take a minute now based on the conversation we've had. And I'd like you, based on these different areas we've discussed, to give yourself a score. So 1 is weak, 10 is strong, 5 is obviously in the middle. I challenge you not to pick a 5 because that's what most people want to do. And how would you score yourself in applying the right skills to sell in today's economy? So take a minute, give yourself a score. Now, what I'd like you to do is write down one thing below that on a piece of paper or type it on your computer if you prefer, one thing that you're going to change, right, in order to affect your score. Now, if you want to put 2 or 3 or 4, that's fine, but I just want you to get at least one thing down, because this time you're spending here, if you do nothing with, if you walk away from today and you do nothing with what we talked about, that's an hour of your life you'll never get back. And if you are an entrepreneur, business owner, what I'm still learning, by the way, I'm not there, but what I have learned and continue to learn is the faster I can take an idea that's somewhat relevant to me and apply it and move on, the more success I'll have. That's the way you speed up your journey. That's the way you scale your business, right? You don't sit and ponder and question. You say, well, look, this guy is credible. What he said makes sense. He told me to do this. Done. On to the next thing, right? Don't have to worry about being perfect. We just have to worry about executing quickly. Again, if it's relevant, but don't spend too much time challenging it. All right. So now what we have here is we've talked through today some areas that you won't find in basic sales training that I think are very important to you if you really want to do, if you do want to connect with people to have the opportunity to sell them. Okay. You've also scored yourself and identified where you think you're weak or what you can work on as a result of this conversation today. So you've got some homework to do. I'd highly encourage you, unless you have a back-to-back meeting after this, do something immediately, right? There's something called the learning curve, and I don't have it up here to show you, but the learning curve suggests, and again, don't quote me because I'm making these numbers a little bit wrong, but the learning curve basically suggests that within an hour, we forget about 50% of whatever it is we heard. Within a day, we forget about 70%. Within a week, it's like 90%. So the longer the time between, if you found what I've discussed here today be relevant to you, and there's something you want to do, the longer the time between me wrapping up and you doing something with it, the less chance you're going to remember what you're doing. And I can tell you, as somebody that never wants to forget anything, I've got lots of print offs and notes that I make to not forget, and I still end up going back and rehashing things. And oh yeah, I thought about that a while ago. So take action immediately. Faster you can do that, the more success you'll have. That's a lot of what sales is as well. Before I get to the last slide here, I'll just end by mentioning this: that one thing you can do today that a lot of people don't. And I think as an entrepreneur, you're in your business, you're potentially doing a lot of different roles, which can be a challenge for time. But the faster you can reply to potential leads, the better off you are, because people today want what they want when they want it, right? Social media, for example, online shopping, these phones that we're all carrying have really got all of us thinking that we live in our own world. I mean, think about the algorithm of Facebook. I only see pictures that Facebook thinks I need to see. The effect that's having on me is it's creating a world that maybe isn't a real world, right? It's a world that the algorithm is creating, so it's giving more of what it thinks I want to see. That's a scary thing, and that's not the point of the conversation. But what I want you to consider is that when it comes to your perspective and sales, people today want what they want when they want it. So the faster you can respond to people, the faster you can reply when they reach out to you, the faster you can get back to them on the call, on the phone if they call you, you're going to set yourself apart from the competition. Because I'll tell you right now, regardless of what you're selling, there's a lot of sales people out there and a lot of companies that have very poor customer experience. I can start dropping names of big companies that you would agree with me that the customer experience is horrendous, but I won't do that to protect those companies. But just being responsive, just that one thing can make a huge difference in people going, you know what? This person got back to me quickly. That's who I want to work with. So again, if you do nothing else here today, just start responding to people quickly. If you reach out and they get back to you, jump on it quickly because it'll have a huge impact. And before we jump into Q&A, I'll leave this with you. If you want to do a deep dive into your specific situation, I'm happy to set up 20 minutes. We can kind of do a deep dive. You can pick my brain if you'd like. You just email me, Shawn@ShawnCasemore.com, and we can set that up. And yeah, that's it. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my slides. And oh, there. Oh yeah, if you want to copy my book, there it is. unstoppable sales machine. Okay, so let me get back into Teams, and you should be able to just see me now. Melissa, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you
Perfect.
so much for quite an amazing presentation and really comprehensive as well, Shawn. I just love the way you presented today with sort of like the lessons that we're taking away from today's meeting.
Yeah.
So I'll please ask our viewers to chat or to write your questions in the chat, and we'll go ahead and ask them. We'll ask them for you. In the meantime, while people are adding their questions to the chat, Shawn, I do have a question. How do you get by perhaps when trying to reach out to a business, the staff that perhaps might be blocking people that are
Barriers.
decision makers, right? Because
Yeah.
I've been in a position before where, I also used to own a business, and I even told the person doing reception, if it's a sales call, just tell them we're not available every
Yeah.
single time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple of things to consider. It used to be, hey, I've heard all sorts of experts give all sorts of different answers. Here's my answer. I don't think I'm a mean person, so I have a hard time, ignoring those I have a hard time ignoring receptions. So let's say I went into your company, and the person in reception at that time, yeah, no, what are you doing? Oh, you're selling this? Yeah, we're not interested. I would spend a little bit of time trying to make friends with them. And that doesn't mean in that moment. I mean, I would do a couple things there, but I might follow up with them. I might stop by again someday and drop off a card. Hey, I know that Melissa doesn't want to see me, but I was in the area. You have to see everybody. If you go back to that first graph, what's happening is decisions are being made more collaboratively internally, which means reception might be pulled into the decision as to who do we use for X. So you never know who might be part of the decision. You never know who might have the ear of the person you're trying to reach. So definitely don't step on people. Be clear on the value you bring. So if I was to show up to reception and say, you know what, I think I could, I realize Melissa's maybe busy right now. The reason I stopped by is we've just helped a company who I think might be a competitor. And it's not an NDA, not under any sort of constraint, but we've helped them double their size. And I really just wanted to share a couple strategies of how we did that. I'm pretty sure that message would get to you quickly, and you'd be willing to take my call if it seemed genuine. So be clear on your value. Don't be scared to talk about that. Don't be scared to support it, but be inclusive of the people around you, because you just never know who that person's connected to. And if I can make friends with the reception and you get along well with her, she might actually be the one to say, let me just squeeze you in here for a few minutes on her calendar.
That's some great feedback, Shawn.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to remind the group to please go ahead and type your questions in the chat. I do have another question, Shawn.
Sure.
So a lot of this advice, I think, it works well for both product-based and service-based businesses, but more so, I would say, probably for service-based businesses. When you're selling perhaps a product, like you mentioned, a widget, right, as an
Yep.
example,
Yeah.
how would you say some of the strategies would be to reach your consumers?
Well, it would be similar. So I've worked with a couple companies in Sudbury in the last year and a bit that sold products, equipment, and long lead items, obviously. So in those cases, we're using the same approaches. And at a fundamental level, who are the people that I'm trying to sell to? So maybe if I'm selling equipment into a mine, it's a mine manager, a maintenance manager, a maintenance mechanic or maintainer, could be a scheduling person, could be a supply chain or purchasing person. So there's 5 people. So when I'm pursuing a mine, a company I'm trying to sell to, I'm trying to connect with any and all of those 5 people. So if I only connect with supply chain today, but we have a conversation, great. The next time I'm going to try and keep expanding that, because those are the people that are going to get in the room to make the decision. I don't want anybody in that room saying Shawn who. So when you pursue a company, regardless of what you're selling, think about who are all the people that are decision makers or could influence the decision influencers, and pursue them in parallel and be transparent. Hey, John, I just met with Susan over in supply chain last week. It's great to meet with you here today, right? And you start to build this understanding and relationship of you. But everything else I've talked about is the same, because the difference is really more in the lead time than anything else. So if I'm selling you recruitment services and you need to hire, we can make that decision today. If I'm selling you a piece of equipment that's going to take me 6 months to build, I'm not selling you much today, but I am trying to get you to sign the dotted line if you want it in 6 months, because there's a lead time. So it isn't much different, in all honesty. And I can speak to that from experience.
Mhm. Some great, some great advice. Thank you, Shawn.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, I'd like to say a big thank you, Shawn, for today's presentation. And
Yeah,
to
no problem.
everybody else, we'll be sending you the recording along with a short survey for you to fill out. But thank you again, and stay tuned for our next events.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.